HeatingHelp.com's Dead Men Tales is brought to you by SupplyHouse.com, home to over 100,000 plumbing, heating, and HVAC supplies. SupplyHouse.com has everything you need this heating season, from replacement parts to expansion tanks and other heating specialties. They've got you covered. Pros can take advantage of SupplyHouse.com's Trademaster program to receive free shipping, free returns, exclusive deals, and a dedicated phone line. Their customer service and inventory can't be beat, so be sure to start your next job with SupplyHouse.com. Getting your parts on time won't be just a pipe dream. From HeatingHelp.com, it's Dead Men Tales. I'm Dan Holohan. Lake Ronkonkoma. How's that for a Native American name? Sort of rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? To get my mother, my big brother, and me out of Manhattan and into the country for a while, my father would drive the 60 or so miles from Manhattan to Lake Ronkonkoma, which used to be quite lovely. Beaches ringed the lake, many with pavilions that stretched out over the water on pilings. You could swim out to a wooden float if you were old enough, or you could climb the stairs on the tall slides that had hand pumps at their tops to take the blaze off the summer steel. Each stretched out into the deeper water, but not so deep that kids couldn't handle it on their own. We'd climb, pump, slide, and shriek our way down into the lake, which was the temperature of bath water on a given July afternoon. We'd be out there on our own, hundreds of us. Most of our parents sat up top in the shade of the pavilions, drinking cold beer and watching us from picnic tables. It was 1953. Each summer we would spend a week at Quick's Motel, an old-school place across the street from the lake. Mrs. Quick kept goats and a dog named Flea. The goats were scary. Flea, not so much. There was no TV there. There was only summer. And summer seemed to go on forever. One day my father left us all with Mrs. Quick and went out for a drive. When he returned, he told us that he had just bought a plot of land with the shell of a bungalow on it. It cost $2,500, which seemed a fortune. But he had overtime because the plumbing supply business was booming with business then, and a good man could always get overtime. He told my mother that he had put down $25 to hold the place, and that it would all work out. She would see. What mattered most was that he and his bride were now homeowners, which was his American dream. All the while he was at war in the Pacific, he dreamed of having a place in the country, and now the dream was coming true. And he was going to finish that bungalow for us. He was somewhat handy, and he could learn what he needed to learn. The supply house was filled with clever people who knew how to build things and fix things, and he'd ask for advice. Now this is how my father got what he needed to finish our bungalow. The supply house where he worked was on East 79th Street in Manhattan, directly across the street from the apartment building where we lived. He was the shipping clerk, and in those years after World War II, there was so much building going on. My father ran a couple dozen trucks that made deliveries all over the city and out onto Long Island. He told each of his drivers that when they made a delivery, they should ask the foreman for 1 2x4 and 1 brick. People will help you out if you ask for a little, he told me, and a little bit adds up after a while. On Friday, one truck always made a run out east to deliver to the tract housing that was sprouting like weeds on Long Island. My father would load his free wood and bricks onto that truck, and his driver would dump that load on his lot out there near Lake Ronkonkoma. It took a while, but he finished that tiny house. It wasn't fancy, but that house is still there today, nearly 70 years later. At first we had no indoor plumbing or running water. He dug a hole and built an outhouse for us. He had a shallow well dug and connected a hand pump to that. He showed me how to work it. I could still hear the sound it made. Then he built an 8-foot-high frame out of free wood, mounted a steel drum on top of the frame, painted it black, and screwed a chain-operated shower head into its bottom. He told us that this is how he and the other soldiers had showered in the Philippines. Each morning he would pump buckets of water from the well, climb the ladder, and dump the water into the steel drum. I asked when I would be old enough to climb the ladder, and he'd laugh and say, "Soon enough, kid, soon enough." By evening, that water was almost too hot to bear. And that was how we showered after our long days at the beach. And that was how I learned about solar thermal. I was 4 years old that summer. I wanted to be like my father. That same summer, Hurricane Carol visited Long Island and dropped parts of a huge oak tree on the bungalow. Incredibly, it didn't damage the tiny house. Its limbs just embraced the house like a gigantic green hand. And I thought this was the best thing in the world. We went into the house and looked out the windows. It was like being inside of a tree house. It was magical. My father and the neighbors got together and cut up that tree. They didn't have any power tools. They did it all by hand. They saved the wood and burned it during the summers to come. There was beer involved in that, of course, and I remember helping him bury all the steel cans afterwards. I'd ask why we buried the beer cans, and he said it was so that we could grow more beer. I believed him, of course, and I watched the ground carefully each day, waiting for the metal sprouts to arrive. They never did, but he was a grand storyteller, my father. He added an electric pump to the well in 1956 and piped cold water into the house. No more hand pumping for him. And with the new water heater, our days of solar thermal showers were over. He got some slant-fin baseboard and a bronze body B&G Series 100 circulator from the supply house and ran a heating loop from the water heater. This did a nice job of keeping the place cozy during the fall and the spring. It dawns on me now that he might have been setting us all up for a good dose of Legionnaire's disease with that open system he had built. Domestic water that ran through the baseboard stagnated all summer long, but no one knew of Legionnaire's disease back then. In 1957, he decided to get us out of Manhattan for good. Robert Moses was shoving the Long Island Expressway out onto Long Island, and tract housing was sprouting up all along its way. Each weekend, he and my mom would pile us into the old Buick and drive out to find a house that they could afford. He was going to become a commuter. We kept moving eastward, from exit to exit on the Long Island Expressway as it advanced in its construction. When we got to the town of Hicksville, they found a house that was affordable. He had sold a bungalow in Lake Ronkonkoma to get the down payment on the Hicksville house. It was sad to lose Ronkonkoma, but getting out of the small Manhattan apartment once and for all was worth it. We were going to be suburbanites, and the neighborhood was teeming with kids our age. And Hicksville, I'll admit, is a funny name for a town. Valentine Hicks had founded the place along with the Long Island Railroad. It wasn't really Hickey, though. Even though the roads were made of tar and covered with pebbles, there were no sidewalks or curbs then. During the summers, all the kids would pry the tar from the road in front of our houses with sticks and smear it onto their PF flyers. Then we'd go walk inside our houses and get in trouble with our moms. Some of the kids even ate the tar. They said it tasted like licorice, but I never tried that. Oh, and to keep down the dust on the tar roads, the town would send a truck rattling through the neighborhood every week to dribble oil onto the streets. What today would be an environmental disaster was then simply road maintenance. We also tracked the oil into our houses. It was 1957, after all, and we were like feral cats. Oh, and asbestos was still the miracle mineral. Mercury was in our toys, and so was lead. Hey, who knew? The Hicksville house had a basement, and that's where the boiler was. I couldn't get enough of that boiler. I loved the way it growled. A loop of copper wrapped around the basement ceiling, and branches fed the upstairs steel convectors through diverter tees. My father explained all of this to me. The water goes this way and that way, up and down. Got it, he said. I nodded. Good, he said. You're a smart kid. And that was my introduction to hydronic heating. The water goes this way and that way. Got it. I became acquainted with the Bell & Gossett Series 100 circulator when I was 7 years old. During my rep days, years later, I would sell a lot of those circulators, but the summer of my 7th year had me sticking pencils into the spinning spring couplers. I loved the sound that it made. It sounded like the Topps baseball cards that I would clothespin in front of my bicycle spokes. Rrrr. I also loved the way it chewed up the pencils. We had oil heat. Everyone did. And the service was free as long as you were buying the oil. The serviceman replaced a lot of couplers in our house and probably had bad thoughts about that big red circulator. The couplers just didn't last that long. My apologies, Bell & Gossett. I also loved, but didn't understand, the boiler's barometric damper. I thought it was a cool place to drop my father's plastic-handled tools, for which I now offer a much overdue apology to the servicemen who showed up to retrieve them, melted and all. But like that old boiler, those servicemen are probably no longer in service either. Oh, and I also love to pop the relief valve. It made such a cool sound. The other neat thing about growing up in Hicksville, besides going to school with Billy Joel, was that everyone we knew had hydronic heat. I don't think I ever went into a house with a furnace, not even once. It was boilers all the way, and mainly steel convectors up in the rooms. Baseboard followed as people renovated their houses and added zones. I thought everyone in the world had hydronic heat. I was wrong about that, but I still think we were the luckiest people in the world. We were all dreamers back then, and anything seemed possible. I probably should have kept my hands in my pockets, though. But then if I had done that, I wouldn't have this dead man tale to tell you, would I? And if you like that story, please share it with your friends, and please subscribe to this podcast. I have many more Dead Men Tales to share with you, and I appreciate you so much for being here. Thanks for keeping me company.